Thank you. You know, the science has failed thus far to conquer two frontiers. Find answers to two questions. It has found answers to many questions. But two questions are still a mystery or enigma to science. One is, what was there before the Big Bang? No, there was a Big Bang, which was the starting point of the existence of the universe. It all began from a Big Bang. But what existed before Big Bang? Even science could not reach. Externally, it could not go beyond that. But do you know, internally, it still could not explore what is behind your eyeballs. You know, what we call as your brain. It has 1 billion neurons. In 10,000 or more clusters. What are these billion neurons doing? No science could explain thus far. You know, humans use 2% of their brain, 3% of their brain. If you are a very intelligent person, maybe you use 10%, not any of us. But 90% तो बैठ के बदमाशी कर रहा है. Even if assuming you are using 10% of your brain to listen to speeches and all, there is another 90%. So it's always good to calm down. Try and open up as much mind space as possible to ideas. So I'm sure next 15 days you will have that brilliant experience of listening to different facets of this public life. What are the aspects that one can ponder over, can understand and all that. I speak in English today because that is one language which all Indians understand or pretend to understand. One of them. But, you know, Indians have produced excellent English scholars. There used to be a scholar from Madras those days, now Chennai, called Right Honorable Srinivasa Sastri Iyengar. He was one of the greatest English scholars of our country in the last century. He one day happened to go to London, happened to meet with the then Prime Minister, Mr. Winston Churchill. When he was talking to Churchill, Srinivasa Sastri felt that Churchill's English was grammatically wrong. Now, Shastri was a scholar. Scholars are seldom afraid of anybody. So, Shastri told Churchill that, Mr. Churchill, your English is grammatically wrong. Churchill was taken aback. This fellow, we are ruling over these fellows. We taught them English, and he is coming back to me and telling me that my English is wrong. But Churchill was a statesman, so he did not get angry. Unlike, you know, you try to tell that to any leader in India, you will have it. But Churchill was not like that. He was a statesman. He just told Shastri, Mr. Shastri, what we Englishmen speak is English. The grammar just follows. Jada chinta mat karo. Excluding people like Shastri and all, हम सबकी हालत वही है. ग्रामर की ज़्यादा चिंता नहीं करना, English बोलना सीखना. Nevertheless, we will try to discuss today one very important aspect of this boot camp as to, what makes a good public servant or somebody who wants to do service to the society. Since I saw the manual or booklet published about this boot camp, and I found a quotation from Swami Vivekananda in the very first or second page of that book, and also Shobit just mentioned about Vivekananda, be and make and all that. Let me also start with him, because Vivekananda supplies a lot of quotations to everybody. Even if you are a communist, you have a quotation from Swami Vivekananda to use. So, but one very important quotation that will be probably very useful and applicable to all of us is that he said, I consider every educated a traitor. Traitor. Traitor, samajhte hai na word? Traitor means deshadrohi. I consider every educated a traitor so long he will not work for the suffering millions of this country, at whose cost he has been educated. हमारी शिक्षा दीक्षा, our education, our rise in social life, all this we generally attribute to ourselves and probably to our family. But Vivekananda reminds us that no, behind your individual rise also there is great contribution from the farmer of this country, from the cobbler of this country, from a person in a village in this country, from your teacher, from your neighbor. The whole society as a whole contributes to your rise in your personal life. And having reason, if you forget about that society, then you are no less than a traitor. So begin our whole journey from here. Then comes the question of if you want to do something in public life, what should be the attitude? Again, Vivekananda says, for you to call yourself a patriot, for that matter, in our country, you ask anybody whether he or she is a patriot or not. Everybody has got a proof about their patriotism. If not anything, he will pull out a receipt. See, there was a fire accident in our Sonepat or in our city. Some 100 houses were burned down and we donated rice for the poor people who lost their houses. Or there was tsunami, so thousands of people perished. Lots of villages have been destroyed. We collected, some material to help them. This is the evidence. This is the photograph of us collecting the donations for those people. Or there was this, severe winter and all that. People were shivering to death, so we supplied them kambals. Everybody has a proof for patriotism. But this is called part-time patriotism. Meaning, for one to become patriot, either there should be a tsunami, or there should be a fire accident, or there should be a cyclone. Then I am a patriot. If 100 people die, then I will become patriot. My patriotism will, wake up. Vivekananda says that for a public spirited person, that kind of patriotism is not what is expected. He says we need 3 qualities. So, first of all, decide if we have those 3 qualities in us before we embark on any journey of a public servant. I'm using this word public servant for a deliberate reason, for a reason. In public life, many aspire either to become bureaucrats or political leaders. Those who want to do public service, they find these 2 as the right avenues for public service. Either you become a bureaucrat or a minister or an MLA. When you talk about bureaucrats, generally you ask any junior bureaucrat, sir, is there? So what he will say, no, boss is on leave today. It's a common refrain. Generally, you ask any junior person about his senior, he will say, no, boss is not available, or boss is busy. Boss. What attracts most people to become bureaucrats is this boss. This word boss. Lal Batti. The very definition of a bureaucrat in British tradition, which we borrowed actually, the bureaucratic system that we have is borrowed from the British. The very definition was public servant. You are supposed to be a public servant. But the whole training, the whole attitude is that of becoming a boss. And you are boss and you are all-knowing. No, once you are there, you are an expert on globalization for 2 years, and then you will become an expert on gobar gas for next 2 years. All that is needed is just to transfer you from globalization department to gobar gas department. How can anybody be an expert in globalization also and gobar gas also? But that is only possible for all-knowing bureaucrats in our country. That kind of mindset that I am the boss and I am all-knowing is what plagues our country, our system. So much so that Ram Manohar Lohia, one of the greatest socialist intellectuals of our country in the last century, had once said that this Indian civil services is actually the cancer of Indian society. The word he used was cancer of Indian society. Why is it a cancer? The whole attitude, whole mindset is that I'm the boss, I run the country. Politicians also think almost on the same lines. At least for politicians, every 5 years, there is somebody to judge them. But for a bureaucrat, once you are in for life. So what Vivekananda said was that even if you want to become a bureaucrat, even if you want to become a politician, 3 qualities are needed for anybody who wants to do something good to the society. Number 1, an intense feeling. Why do you want to become an active public worker? Do you have that feeling? What is that feeling needed? Is feel from the depth of your heart. Do you feel that millions are starving today and millions have been starving for ages? Annapurna, Ratnagarbha is the description of our country. In that country, if millions are suffering today due to lack of food, lack of education, lack of employment, lack of money, lack of health care, do you feel? You ask any politician, he will give you a much better speech about the depravity or about the sufferings of our people than probably many of us. You know, I come from Andhra Pradesh. We used to have a very renowned, Leninist leader, Marxist-Leninist leader by name Tarimela Nagireddy. He authored a 600-page book, 600 pages, remember. And the title was India Bankrupt. Takattulo Bharat Desham, those Telugu people who are there here. A bankrupt India. So it is very, very easy and it is definitely possible to write a book, write an essay, give a speech. But what Vivekananda said was, no, not that. Do you feel? Does it make you restless? Does it make you sleepless? रात को नींद नहीं आ रहा है. Has it entered into your blood, coursing through your veins, become almost consonant with your heartbeat? Have you become almost mad with that one idea of the misery of our people and forgot everything else? Have you become almost mad with that one idea? So first and foremost is you should have that intense feeling for the people, for the country. Then of course, he says the second stage. Okay, I have an intense feeling, so I should become an IAS officer. You have to write an exam, you may or may not get through. So the second thing he says is that do you have it in you to find a way to serve those people? If you have the feeling, look for a way. Way you have to choose. Okay, some can become politicians. India needs good politicians with conscience. Not just power-hungry, money-hungry politicians, but politicians with conscience, antaratma, feeling, sensitivity. Such politicians should be needed, but politicians will be limited in number. So will be the bureaucrats. But can you find your own way to ameliorate the sufferings of the people? That is the second quality. He says, find a way. But then, there is the third stage, he says. Many will have the feeling. Many know what is the right way to work, but lack the courage. Because ultimately, your parents will tell you probably that, यार ये क्या देश बोल रहे हो? इंजीनियरिंग पढ़े हो, लॉ पढ़े हो, मैनेजमेंट पढ़े हो, अच्छा मल्टीनेशनल में काम करो. What nonsense are you talking? You are saying you will go and serve the people. Vivekananda ने मजाक से कहा, doesn't apply today, that most powerful, roadblock in actually moving forward in the chosen path will be the tears of your mother and your wife, he said. Don't get angry. Today, many wives encourage husbands, and many wives do much more things. Many women do much more service to the society. But Vivekananda let note, sir, there can be resistance from our household. They will say, what nonsense are these? Your friends may say, पागल हो क्या? 15 दिन कोई बूट कैंप में जाके बैठ रहे हो, क्रिकेट मैच हो रहा है. Do you have it in you to overcome those discouragements and have the courage of conviction to tread the path that you have chosen? If we have these three, then only, try to experiment with it. Otherwise, be happy with your life. In India, there are 1.4 billion Indians, but we probably don't know there are 400 million cattle. Nobody bothers about, does anybody ask, what happened to that guy that I saw in Sonepat? Does anybody ask? No. But similarly, nobody asks what happened to that young man I saw in Hyderabad or in Mysore. 1.4 billion are there. But if we really want to do something in the public life, you need to have that kind of intense feeling, the way to find, to follow, and the courage to tread that path. Once you have it, then okay, rest of the things. What is this whole public life all about? All this falls in place. I will simply touch upon what India needs today, where as public-spirited individuals you can contribute. What is the greatest challenge of India today? Can anyone tell me? Employment and education and okay, somewhere near, yeah. So, divided. So, see, while all these challenges are common to our country and also to many countries, the biggest challenge from the public servant point of view is over-governmentalization of our society. For example, you said there is employment challenge. Then where do you find answers? You say government has to do more, right? You say country is divided. Where do you find answers? You say, no, there should be strict law and order, right? We know the problems, but we find answers to each and every problem in the government. We created a society in the last 75 years which is heavily dependent on governments. What India has always been historically, India is a country with 5,000 plus years of history. All the while, India has never been so dependent on government than today. You probably would have heard about that great war that Ashoka, the emperor, the Mauryan emperor, fought against the Kalinga kingdoms. That bloody war in which almost 20 million people died or 30 million people died, which created a great remorse in the minds of Ashoka and all that, right? It was a war that happened between what is today's Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, this area, and what is today's Orissa, right? But do Orias and Biharis fight today? Do they have any antagonism today? You know the reason. Even when our kings were fighting wars, societies were never involved. Societies were never led by kings. We were led by our own learned people in our village. Our village guru, our village teacher, our village postmaster. India's society was a localized society, never a Raj-Adharit society, state-centered society. We created a state-centered society today, and now we want answers to every damn problem that we face from the state. What India needs today, what the public-spirited leaders need to do today is to de-governmentalize majority of our public life, social life. You'll be surprised to know that the district collectors in some states, each district collector, DM, has hundreds of duties to perform. Hundreds. I mean, literally, his cup is overfull. His plate is overfull. But one of those jobs is to count the number of goats. Goats. Why? Because Government of India, Pashupalan Vibhag, has a money sanctioned for goat rearing to some areas. Because there is a project for rearing the goats, poor DM has to count the goats. We have created so much governmentization in our system. We have to de-governmentize our system. That's the biggest challenge today. Public-spirited individuals have to be given the responsibility of many things in our country, many things. Sports. Why should it be in the government's hands? Even education. Okay, at some level there could be some kind of a regulatory system, no doubt. But why should it be in the hands of the government? Temples. Why should they be in government's hands? But we created a system where everything is in the government's hands. We need today people who can bring, society out of this governmental control. This we have to do from outside also, but when you become a part of the government, then also we should do it. The problem with the mindset is once you are inside the government, you think that no, all power should be in my hands. That's how a bureaucrat thinks. He wants to control everything. De-governmentize it, because today the challenges that our country faces are multifaceted, vast challenges. SDGs. Began long ago, never achieved in the world. We keep postponing. Now we want to achieve them by 2030. Very fundamental things: education, healthcare, drinking water, sanitation, climate. Many of things can be achieved through public-spirited activism. You don't need governments. But everything is in the hands of governments. These have to be de-governmentized. That is one important task that public intellectuals can take up. There is a hurry today. You have to be in a hurry. Because the world is changing very fast. What we see today is not going to be the same 5 years from now and 10 years from now. You may say that, sir, history hamesha aisa hi hota hai. What we see today is not going to be the same always. But remember, history never runs at the same pace. It doesn't run at the same speed always. Sometimes it goes so slow that you will be fed up. When we were in the under the British rule, we used to feel that, yaar, kab khatam hoga? Kab hum आजाद होंगे? कितने लोग मरना पड़ता था, कितने लोगों को जेल जाना पड़ता था, खत्म ही नहीं होता. So much so that there was one occasion when even Gandhi ji had said that, is it actually possible for us to throw these Britishers out of our country? Is it possible? It's another matter. It was Gandhi who became instrumental in throwing them out later. But there was a phase when so much frustration, so much of history was not at all moving. But sometimes history moves so fast that before you could catch up, you are somewhere else. We are in that phase today. History is moving very fast. Unless we quickly take things into our hands and try to catch up with what is happening in the entire world, we will be left somewhere behind. So as public-spirited individuals, we also have a big role to play. For example, I mentioned you are in an educational campus. Education is essential for development or progress of any society. Without education, no society can progress. Education is key. But the education that we are imparting to our people today, barring some institutions probably like Rishud and all, generally the education that we are imparting is going to be useless 5 years from now. It is going to be of no use. The kind of innovation, the kind of research era that is there in the world today, we are nowhere. Our research is very weak. Innovation, इसकी बात ही नहीं. What we call as innovation is actually imitation. We just imitate. किसी ने कुछ किया, उसके एक कॉपी मार के, उसने पक्का टायर यूज किया, तो आप बैलगाड़ी का टायर यूज करो और कहो कि मैंने इनोवेट किया. It's imitation. India is poor in its research because for research also we depend on government. So we need to really seriously think about how to take the initiative back, give it back to the people. But when it is given back to the people, are we ready to take it up? Are we ready to undertake or take on the challenges that the highly, quickly transforming new world is going to present before us? For example, among the SDGs is the challenge of drinking water. Today, when water doesn't come, we all complain about municipality, about the government. It can't help. We need to find innovative answers. How do we clean up our water bodies? How do we build new water bodies? How do you ensure that not a single drop of water is wasted, conserved, preserved? How can it be used? We need to find ways of doing that. That is where today's public activism is needed. Today's educated people have to go down to that level. Not only looking for some good government job. Those who get it. Anyway, government jobs are far and few. They are not going to be available. But outside the government, huge activism is needed. I will just conclude by saying that we are fortunate to be living in a democratic system with all its defects. Once Nehru, who actually championed this idea of democracy for India. In 1928, Simon Commission came to India. It came up, you all would have read in history textbooks in high school, it came up with certain constitutional proposal for India. The then leadership of the Congress had rejected it. They said, no, we don't accept, we don't want to be dominions. With the Queen of England as the Emperor of India, that we won't agree. We will have our own free constitution and free India. Then the Simon Commission members taunt Congress leaders. So, you are thinking you are so intelligent, can you make a constitution for yourself? And Congress took it up as a challenge. And Congress created a committee led by Motilal Nehru. Many members were there. Our Sardar Patel was there. Others were there. They came up with a constitution in 1929. That constitution was rejected in 1929 Congress Lahore conference held on the banks of river Ravi. Who opposed that constitution were two people, Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose. And why they opposed was only for one reason, because that new constitution also said India can be a dominion country. India can have dominion status. Dominion status means you will have some limited freedom, but you will still be under the suzerainty of the British Queen. These two people said, no way. We want to be completely free. No shadow of any British rule on us. We want a completely free India. And when a new proposal was to be made, in that Nehru said, India will be a parliamentary democracy. That's how the journey of our parliamentary democracy began. And when we actually became independent, somebody asked Nehru, you had been the champion of democracy in India. Do you think it is really a good model for India? Nehru's reply was, it is the best available model in the world today. Meaning, it doesn't mean there are no flaws in it. There are flaws. But it is the best available. Then, he said, it is the available best model. Then the journalist asks, journalist तो इतना जल्दी छोड़ते नहीं है ना, आप तो available कह रहे हो तो best क्या है? Nehru's reply was, yet to be invented. Nobody says it is the best model. But there is no better model. We are living in this democracy. This democracy gives us a lot of freedom. That freedom needs to be used by public-spirited individuals to create a developed India which is united, as someone said it. We are divided. It has to be a united India. It has to be a prosperous India. You have to create grassroots prosperity in this country. It has to be a strong India. Strong India, when I say, don't remember only China and Pakistan. A strong India where every individual feels secure. A woman should feel secure. A scheduled caste should feel secure. A scheduled tribe should feel secure. A minority should feel secure. Everybody feels, I am secure in this country. That kind of a secure India. A secure India from Pakistan, China, and our enemies also. And finally, a country which is respected. Not ridiculed. A country which is seen with dignity. That kind of India we have to create. Again, I come back to that first point. For doing that, we need public-spirited individuals not putting everything in the basket of Mr. Narendra Modi. Of course, as Prime Minister, as the government, what they have to do, they will do. But we need people who work at multiple levels to achieve this great transformation in this country, to build a Vikasit Bharat. Namaskar.